My name's Ross Hampton, and I look after the National Association in Canberra, but also that looks after all of your interests all over Australia. And the good news for you is that that involves the plantation sector of this industry, the sawmilling sector, the pulp and paper companies right around Australia, and all of the native forest operators, those who look after our native forest estate, and also the sawmills all over Australia. And the reason that's really good news for you is you're probably feeling a bit alone at the moment and wondering what's going on in Victoria. Everyone around Australia is equally concerned with you. That's the whole shooting match, right? So you don't have to feel like you're just Victoria or you're just sawing hardwood here. You are representing a dire consequence or circumstance for our whole industry. So don't feel alone. You probably do feel a bit like this. I'm getting a lot of calls at the moment from people trying to understand this decision, and I can't give them much help with that because we don't understand it either. I think it's worth just mentioning quickly where everyone's from. You know, we've got regional Victoria here. I just did regional radio, and I said your listeners aren't with you today in Northern Victoria. They're here, and this is only a small sample pack, right? We didn't really want to have a big rally today. It was just an opportunity to put a marker in the sand before Parliament rises for the year and say that we are going to be in this for the long run. We are not going to let this happen. We got Mansfield here, we got Hayfield. I just went around and asked a few people. Buxton, Bairnsdale, Warragul, Bullen, Traralgon South, Darnham, Newgie, the Red Gum region, and I could go on and on. The point is, politicians, that you're looking out at regional Victoria. And here's the other interesting fact that you might like to ponder, and the folks inside those windows might like to ponder, and that is that everything that these people are producing is going somewhere. Where's it going, I wonder? It's probably going into factories and manufacturing plants in outer Melbourne suburbs. So this is an interconnected industry. When you hear the nonsense about a few hundred jobs, that's like saying that the bloke who picks some grapes is the end of the winemaking process. There's a little bit more to it than that, and the same goes for these industries. I had a conversation with a bloke who makes beautiful kitchen cabinets out of beautiful sawn timber this week, and he said, what does the Premier think I'm supposed to do? I use oranges to make orange juice, and he's saying we're going to give you apples, maybe in 10 years' time, maybe a lot later. The people here understand that, but the public out there don't, and that's what our job's going to have to be. It's going to have to be to help them understand that they're being sold a pup. It's a complete hoax and a fabrication that we're going to somehow pivot an industry into something completely different. We have oranges, we have apples, we love them all, we love all that fruit, but they are very, very different. Here's the other hoax that needs to be popped before we get into the ceremonies properly, and that is that there is no old growth forest logging in Victoria. It hasn't been since Vic Forest announced that more than a year ago. So this re-announcement in relation to this announcement was a hoax. We said it was a hoax at AFPA, and we'll stand by that, and it's something that you will need to repeat whenever you get the chance, because it really does hurt us that people think that's the case and it's not. Here's the other thing that you want to repeat as often as you possibly can. 4. Everyone hold up 4 fingers. You know what that is? That's the number of trees out of 10,000 that our industry uses in a year in Victoria. And here's the other thing, you know, those trees when they're gone, you know what happens after that? Unlike some other parts of the world where Victoria wants to get its timber from in the future, apparently, those trees by law are regenerated, replanted. Up they come again. I heard one of the blokes here, is it Brett Robbins? Is he a great contractor? He said, hey, Brett, I heard you on radio or on TV saying you were harvesting trees that either your dad or your granddad had harvested. Yeah, so, I mean, and clearly, Mr. Premier, that's not sustainable. There's something about that that's not sustainable. So just go figure. But the impact on the public is very important. If when we do our research to work out what really people think about our industry, it's pretty negative at the start, I tell you, when you just put it to them. But if you say, now, okay, what if it's 4 trees out of 10,000 that you regrow, the support goes from about 30% up to 70%. So it's the key thing people need to hear from all of us, that it is a completely sustainable industry. I work internationally with some UN bodies around sustainable forest management. I was in Brussels last week, and you wouldn't believe what they were saying around the table in Brussels. They're saying, how can we get countries like Australia to do more sustainable forest management so that we don't have to denude the landscapes in Southeast Asia and East Africa and so on. So I hung my head in shame a little bit. It's sounding a bit tough on the Premier today, probably, aren't I? Let me just say, for the record, before we get into our speeches, that this is not a partisan proposition. These hats at the moment are just a plea, really, to Premier Andrews. There's still time to turn this ridiculous decision around, in our view. There's plenty of time. No one's made any big decisions. There's been a crazy announcement made without any real substance. There's time to rethink what's going on here. And so we genuinely say to the government in Victoria, if you're interested, we are happy to talk to you about this. We've invited them all out here today, but I don't think I can see anyone from the government here. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there is that opening, and I encourage you in your own communities to keep those lines of communication open, because it is I mean, as you know, this is an existential issue for all of you. Otherwise, it's all over. The other quick thing I need to say before I introduce our politicians is that this isn't a sprint. As Kirsten Gentle said, this is not a sprint. We're going to have to knuckle down for a long push here, and it's going to be at least up to the next election, which is a bit over 2 years away. But feel encouraged today. You're not on that journey on your own. There's a lot of people around Australia who are going to be working really, really hard to make sure that there is a successful outcome here. So the first thing you need in a political environment like this, and this, make no mistake, this is not an environmental decision or a climate change decision or a bushfire decision or any other list of things. This is a political decision that's been made. So what do you need in politics? You need the contrary point of view. And I'm delighted to say that straight off the mark, the opposition in Victoria didn't have to think about whether this was a right or wrong decision to make. So they came straight out and said this is the wrong decision to make, and as the couple of weeks have gone on since this decision, they've become even stronger about it. I want to ask you to welcome to the step stage here, Michael O'Brien, who's the leader of the opposition in Victoria and also the leader of the Liberal Party.